Hey everybody, it's Ron with Ron's Computer Videos. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day and spending it right here with us. As always, excellent interview. Let's get right to it. He's a programmer, a game designer, and the reason why I used to get in trouble in school for bowling instead of studying, Charlie Kellner. Charlie, how are you today, sir?
Hi, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. I really do appreciate you taking time to come and talk to us. I know that a lot of the people that watch my channel are LucasArts fans. A
Mhm.
lot of the people, and kind of as we go through the discussion, I think that there's a couple of games and stuff and applications that we're going to talk about that they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was Charlie? And then afterwards they can be the person at the party that says, oh yeah, by the way, did you know? So we're helping the community be smarter at parties, I guess.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, the the thing that I always had in mind, excuse me, at my work, wherever I was, is I wanted to be the man behind the curtain. I wanted to just make things possible. I wanted to try to create a system where other people could use it to be famous. So that was my philosophy, and I tried to do that as much as I could.
well, I would say that for all the amazing products and all the cool games and stuff that you worked on, if it was just something of just understanding the math of how to make something possible, or if it was designing the animation system, you did all those things. So, and I'd love to talk to you about them. But
Sure.
kind of a great place to start is probably what some of your first exposure to computing was, and when you decided that being a programmer and stuff was going to be something that you would want to pursue as a career.
Okay. Well, that's a very good start. My major in college was physics, and well, in order to work on physics, you had to be familiar with computers because they're used very heavily in analyzing the results of the experiments. So while I was learning about computers, I got distracted by them. I just I found working on the computer was much more fun than working on physics, and I eventually got completely sidetracked, and I wound up having a career in computers instead.
And I think
So
there's a lot of people in those early days that there wasn't really like a computer science program or like business computing. It's
no,
everybody
not
starts
much.
in the hard sciences and then just sort of, you know,
Yeah, where I where I learned about all this stuff was really um, hobby kind of things. You know, while I was working on my career, at least I thought, I I was using really big computers. In fact, the computer we had at our college was the biggest and most powerful computer in the entire state. It was a control data 3300 that was later replaced with a 6600. And this is still considered a powerful computer by today's standards. Um, it would be a modest computer today, but it was one of the most powerful in the world back then. And well, everything they wanted us to do, all the experiments, and the computer tests and all that, it, it kept coming back by using, I used like zero point zero 0.01 hours of computer time. And it's just like, wow, this is actually a pretty complex calculation, and it just used almost no time at all. So that was my first exposure to it. But then when I got done with work stuff, I went home and, well, I was looking at personal computers, and for some reason, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it seemed to me that the obvious choice was the Apple II. It's just that the other ones seemed equally powerful, but it seemed more flexible. I liked the idea of the slots that you could put cards into.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually bought an Apple II. I was one of the first users in the state, I think. And I had, let's see, wow, I'm already forgetting stuff. I think I had the Apple II serial number 601.
That's pretty amazing. That's a pretty low number, that's for sure.
Yeah,
In the grand scheme of how many millions of machines they made.
Yeah, a 3-digit number. Yeah. Then I thought I was kind of late getting into the game, but well, now it looks very different. So I I had this at home, and it's funny. I would spend my days working on the control data monster machine, and then I'd spend my evenings working on the Apple II. And I just had fun working on it, and eventually a friend of mine showed me his business card, and it said Apple Computer, and I was like stunned. I was like, wow. And he said, why don't you come over and let us interview you? Mm-hmm. I thought, wow, that is probably the best invitation I have ever gotten. And so I did go over, and they hired me on the spot. It was a relatively brief interview, but I actually got to talk to some of the early, the guys who started Apple, mm-hmm. And I thought, this is really a remarkable place, and these are remarkable people. And I'm honored that they would consider inviting me.
Well, I think it's one of those things where, especially in those days, talent recognizes talent, and it's if you're wanting to build a brand or something like that, you've got to get in and get the people in from HP and all these other companies to kind of start building that.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So yeah, I am. My earliest experience, let's see, basically I wanted to reach out and find out who was actually using the computer in educational purposes back then, because my thing was I wanted to, I thought this is the first computer that I could see actually sitting on a student's desk. And I wanted to, well, in fact, I've got to tell you this part of the story. This one, when I got there, they well, I actually wound up moving from Oregon down to California and getting everything set up there. I went to work the next day, and they sent me home and said, you've got some unpacking to do. Why don't you do that? We'll get started tomorrow. And so it was kind of informal to begin with. But then, I forgot where I was going with this, but
Oh, just talking about starting at Apple, and they were, hey, head home, and we'll get this all going tomorrow.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, okay, when I got there, that I remembered now, when I got there, I said, okay, I'm here. What would you like me to do? And the guy that I was interviewing with, who was going to be my boss, said, what would you like to do? Well, I was speechless. I mean, it's like, how do you respond to something like that? So I just told him, well, the whole reason I'm here is I saw this ad, like in a magazine, that said, an apple for the teacher. And, I thought this machine is actually the first thing that I've ever seen that I could imagine being on a student's desk. So I thought, well, I'd like to be part of your education department.
Okay.
And he said, well, you got some unpacking to do. Why don't you go home and do that? We'll get started tomorrow. And so I came in the next morning and I discovered that I was the education department.
Well, that's good, though. You get to build it however you want to see it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and to actually underscore the point, my boss, he set me down at the teacher's desk, and he sat down at one of the students' desks, and he said, "Okay, what should we do?" Again, I was speechless. This doesn't happen to me very often, and here it happens twice in one day. And so I don't know. I said, well, first of all, I think we need more people. Mm-hmm. It was just the two of us. And yeah, and I said, why don't you find someone who's actually had some experience managing things? Because, I'm not a manager. I don't enjoy managing people. So he did. He found a guy that actually was, excellent addition to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And that relieved me from that pressure. And then, yeah, that was, we were off to a good start, I thought. We took a trip all the way around the country. We went to places where they were actually using Apple IIs in education. And one of the ones I really remember was Minnesota.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had an education computing consortium there.
Yep. I was going to say, there's a lot of schools that built their software library with the MECC, like just all the stuff, and made it really easy for, teachers to get curriculum and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, that was it all seemed very positive at the start. And it was like, with momentum like this, I just was wondering where it was going. It looked like it was taking off like a rocket ship. And so, yeah, I tried, basically, I tried doing the things that other people were not doing. It looked like there was some support work that had to be done. I could help individual people finish their part of the project,
mm-hmm.
but it seemed like a much better use of my time to build a platform that people could use. So I focused on doing that, and along the way, I met some very interesting people. I mean, we were a modest little group, but there were a lot of people that wanted to be involved in it. And well, I mean, certainly everyone that I met back then was remarkable. But one of the people that stands out in my memory was Loren Carpenter. Now, Loren was part of the also brand new Lucasfilm imaging group. They were using computers, much bigger computers, to do professional imaging that could actually, at the start, they were aiming kind of modestly. It's like you could pick a high target and hope to hit it, or you could pick a lower target and be absolutely certain of hitting it. So they were taking the more modest and more successful approach. So yeah, what we started out doing was just building the foundations, building the hard parts that no one else was doing. So yeah, it was not what I would call fun, but it was extremely rewarding. I loved doing it. And it was, and the people I met were just an amazing group of people. It was a profound experience.
Well, I know as part of your time there with the education team, that you're very much credited with kind of being the person that was the start of, we want to sell these things to schools. It's one thing to just come up with a deal for teachers or something, or get somebody to buy one, but you've got to have but you've got to have all that support and stuff after the sale. So,
right.
But I've talked to a number of people that have worked through the education side of Apple over the years, and they're all like the shift to where it's just 100% of like, you've got hardware, but now how do you leverage that, and then how do you get parents excited about like take this experience home and kind of build that whole sort of culture of computing. So it's really exciting that you got to be there and kind of start a lot of those things. I know from just kind of reading and stuff online that you were also part of creating kind of those early authoring systems for helping other people become developers, and other people that wanted to kind of get in on the Apple II, that kind of shared your vision of like, this is going to be the future of personal computing or home computing. So do you have any recollections about some of that early time of like writing software? Again, I kind of teased at the beginning Apple Bowl, which I know that for a lot of people my age was one of their first games. That if you weren't writing it yourself, that it was kind of one of the first games that you might have played on a straight Apple II or an Apple II Plus.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, yeah, at that time, I was actually quite a bowler. I was on the bowling league, and I actually was getting some pretty high scores. I had one year when my average, get this, my average for the entire year was 240.
That's really great.
And I had several 300 games in that.
Wow.
And so I wanted other people to share in this, and I thought, I wonder if I can make an accurate bowling simulator. I mean, not just a thing where you like throw a ball and it does a random pinfall or something, but I wanted to see if I could do a realistic pinfall. And the judgment that I was using was, if I felt that I made a mistake, if I felt that I didn't throw it perfectly, that the pinfall would show that, and that I had a lot of experience actually bowling, so I could tell if the mistake that I made would result in that particular pinfall. So I fine-tuned it until the point where it actually did feel like that. And then I thought it was ready to release. But the idea was simple. Just try to replicate the real game to give people the feeling of actually bowling.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
I remember being a young person and like getting very, very frustrated if I couldn't get the timings and things like that just right. So
yeah.
it took me a long time to break even a 200 game.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Well,
as time gets on, you just practice. It's like real bowling.
right. When you might have been surprised, but if you went to a bowling alley and actually did some real bowling, you would probably get about the same score that you would get on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got it to that point where people told me that they would get the same score,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, I'd better stop working on it.
It's like we've got parity with reality now, so
Yeah.
that's good enough, right?
Well,
So,
I had a tendency to make something perfect and then keep working on it
mhm.
until I basically ruined it and had to throw it away.
Well, it's like they say, like, you know, most movies aren't finished, they're abandoned. You know, it's you just have to kind of get it to the point where it's like, you know what, you can't let perfection be the enemy of good enough, or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically the project only ends when somebody
Mhm.
says it's done.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
There were projects that I probably would still be working on, and I
Well,
didn't learn how to
yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like continuing with projects and things like that, I know that while you were there, you also worked with help. Was it that you helped develop the system software? So
Which,
for the Apple III.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I was, well, the group that was building the Apple III wanted to know if they could borrow me. And I thought, I looked into what they wanted me to do, and basically, they wanted me to build the system software for the Apple III from the ground up. And I thought, wow, that's quite a privilege. So I was very honored by that. And I did the best job on it that I could. But the irony was that the Apple III never took off.
Yeah.
So what could have been my flagship project there sailed off into the sunrise, and that was it.
Well, I don't think that the Apple III it was kind of one of those things where it was like, hey, we've got to get into this market, that we've got IBM is dominating. So we're going to have more of a business style machine, kind of the you know, the Apple II already has that HP look. Apple III definitely has that HP look. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that not having Apple II compatibility probably
Mm-hmm.
hurt, but at the same time, I can understand the decision that you want to make a line in the sand where it was, you know, this is our business class and this is for people at home.
Well,
Um,
it actually did have Apple II compatibility built
right.
into it, but
Hmm.
that wasn't the point of building the Apple III.
Sure.
But
Well, SOS definitely introduced a lot of great things that you know, inspired other things that really made the Apple II better with
mhm,
time. So it's not
yeah,
wasn't a wasted effort. It's all of that engineering, all that know-how. I mean, all that technical and creative thinking
mhm.
absolutely extended the life of the Apple II for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, I was certainly having fun working on it. Um, I think there was never a point where it got to be just a job.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a privilege to work there. And well, on these other side projects, I kept my normal work going. I put in the proper number of hours and sometimes a lot of extra. But during whatever spare time I actually had, I found some people that were very interested in having me help them.
Mm-hmm.
And the one the one that was the most amazing to me was the Dolphin research group,
Mm-hmm.
and they were actually trying to use the Apple II to talk to dolphins, and it's like I've always been a science fiction fan my entire life, and it's like this is living science fiction,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I couldn't resist. I mean, it's like they made this opportunity just for me, and I tried to dig into it, as well as I don't know what the right word is, but I just threw myself into it completely. And yeah, again, I quickly discovered that the thing that was needed was a foundation. I wasn't building the end product here. I was helping build the foundation that would help other people build the product.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to realize that this was probably my purpose of being there. And it's I it did occur to me that it was like this is the part of the job that nobody else wants to do. And so I wound up doing it because it had to be done. So
Sometimes that's how it happens. You're just the right person at the right time for
yeah,
those things. And it might seem like drudge work at times, but
no, it
sometimes you make
actually
some really valuable contributions.
honestly it never did seem like drudge work.
That's good.
I mean, there were times when it was hard. There were parts of the work that were very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But um, no, it didn't get boring. It didn't get to the point where I would rather be doing something else. Um, and I took on the challenge as kind of, I suppose, looking back on it, it was like a life challenge. It was something that wanted to be born into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was sort of a midwife or something, but I tried to help it become real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could sense while I was doing all of this that there was something very powerful there. There was like a force, and at times I could almost feel it, but it was definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so basically, I had no clue where it was heading. I don't think any one of us could have told what the future would be like.
Oh, sure. I know Steve thought it was going to be Macintosh. to the detriment of everything else.
Well, it probably should have been. The Macintosh was and is an incredible machine.
Oh, sure.
I mean, today it's pretty much the foundation of home computers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was right on that.
Yep.
But the Apple II had much of a longer lifetime than I think anyone expected.
Oh yeah. This year, 2026 is the 40th anniversary of the Apple IIGS.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who would have thought that all these years later? I mean, I have over on my shelf over here, I've got a ROM 1 and a ROM 3 and a ton of expansion cards, and it's still a fun machine.
Yeah.
It's a games machine now, but when it was contemporary, when my family owned one when they were new, I type in papers and art projects and music and all of this. And it's
You're right.
I didn't have those experiences, I don't think that I would be in the information technology field today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it was there's a word that's perfect for this. That basically this machine was central to a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And by itself, it was a remarkable product. But when you look at what other people did with it, it was it became the personal computer revolution.
It certainly sparked it. I think Woz knew that hey, it's something that's expandable, something that encourages people to tinker, including BASIC and all of that, just to give people the tools that they needed to start making their own things. That really captures people's imagination versus just a closed off sort of solution. Where it's, sorry, you have to buy everything. You can't make everything.
Yeah.
So.
I actually, I should mention, oh no, I lost it. Well, let's see.
Charlie, about the time that you were in Apple would have been when Jeff Raskin and everybody was working on the early versions of the Mac, or kind of what his original vision for the Mac was going to be. Did you have did you have any involvement with that project?
Indirectly, yes. I remember one day, Jeff had his cubicle was actually close to mine. His cubicle stood out because it was festooned with all these things, not just things that he was working on, but ideas that he thought were important. And it was just a marvel just to walk into his cubicle and look at all of these things on the walls. And one day Jeff invited me over there to look at something new. And he showed me a very early prototype of the Macintosh. And I remember there was another guy, a much younger guy, younger than me, who was essentially the primary software developer for the Macintosh. I'm having trouble remembering his name.
I know Burrell Smith was largely kind of on the hardware side of all that, because he was the guy that made the first wire wrap board. But
I'll remember it in a minute. But So I don't know. It was like I did have this weird feeling, like I had been working on the Apple II for so long, and it was like the whole company was tuned and oriented toward building Apple IIs, but it had become less of a software challenge and more of a hardware challenge. How can we make these things faster and cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
How can we bring the price down? So, well, that was all going on. I didn't really think there was much I could do to help with that. But he showed me this new prototype for what he called the Macintosh. It's, another flavor of Apple. and well, I looked at it and I thought, after I understood what I was looking at, I thought, why aren't we building this instead of building that? I just thought this is a remarkable idea. But back then it was just an idea.
Was it Andy Hertzfeld?
Yes, that
was. Sorry, Andy. It took me a second to think of it too.
Andy was the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you might say that that Burrell and Jeff, to give them credit, were the hardware, and Andy was the software.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I actually was trying to think, what could I do? What could I possibly do to help with this? And I just, I thought certainly it would be powerful for games, but it's actually so powerful that I couldn't really imagine an appropriate game to do on it. So I was, again, thinking what was necessary here was a foundation layer that could be built on top of that, would actually lead to building games or applications. In the case of the Macintosh, it was clear to me that the applications were going to look more like games. They're going to be a lot more graphic and involve what we used to call multimedia, sound as well as video and pictures. So I didn't really understand to the extent that that was going to change. It's like even the text, even a page full of text was actually, it was a software font. So instead of it actually being built into hardware, there was this font in memory that could then be used to paste together a line that looked like text. That was built into the foundation of the machine from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't added on later.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of nice when you're starting with a project like that to be able to hey, what are some of the shortcomings and how do we address all of that?
Well, I didn't actually think of them as shortcomings, honestly. I just thought of it as things that had not been done yet. It's like when you have something that can do anything, what do you do with it? Mm-hmm. It was more of a brain challenge than a hardware challenge. Yeah. It's like what would be appropriate to do with a machine like this? What kind of things would enable other people to do even better things? And it was clear with this one that whatever contribution I was able to make, I wanted it to be just a stepping stone. I didn't want to try to build any final endpoint, you know, application. You know, it was the idea of an application on this was once you do something like that, you're done. You know, that's just the end of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I was much more interested in getting this thing off the ground,
Right.
Trying to build the pieces that I would use and other people would use
Mm-hmm.
to build better pieces.
Sure.
And part of that was not closing off the development process itself, but to make the development process part of what people would work on and use.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the idea of people being able to change the foundation itself is probably what made the machine what it is today. Because it's the old saying, you know, none of us are as smart as all of us.
That's true. That's true. It's we go, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, bring other people with you, you know. So there's so much stuff that I can't just store in my brain. I totally rely on people around me all the time. It's all my offline storage for expertise and talent. So I absolutely appreciate that.
So basically, you know, if I could kind of disappear into the foundation, that would be my greatest wish, actually. I didn't.
Well,
yeah.
You know, I was gonna say it's kind of tough. You touched too many things. You touched too many projects. So it's to escape any sort of notoriety in all of this. I know that one of the things that you had created kind of in the Apple II era was the Alpha Centauri. So for like music and things like that, and how bringing music and things like that. And there's some great demos. There's people that still have the software. They've still got all the hardware and everything. You can go on YouTube and you can check out people still composing music in 2026 using those solutions. But I always thought it was really, really great. There is a cool story that Andy Hertzfeld shares out on or in his book and then on folklore.org about some of your contributions on the Mac and with like you're the father of the startup beep among other things. But as part of that story, I know that you kind of had a little bit of a run-in with Steve about some hardware modifications to one of the early Macs. Do you want to maybe share that for people that don't know?
Well, there were a number of things. I'm having trouble remembering a specific. Could you say a little more there?
Oh, sure. It's basically about that. That the audio could be better on the Macintosh if only there was a way for the speaker to move more air.
Well, yeah. It was kind of amazing that the only nod that they gave toward audio was a little built-in speaker that was only that big. And it was it was bolted to the plastic side of the case, and there weren't even any holes for the sound to come out. So I scratched my head over it, and then I dismounted the speaker and drilled some holes in the side of it in my machine, and then put the speaker back, and it sounded completely different. So some people actually noticed this, and so they actually tried putting holes in the case there for the speaker. But the better thing that was done was to externalize the entire process. So you use a sound card, which would then be able to produce professional level audio.
Right.
And the nice thing about being a plug-in card is that that wasn't the end of it. You know, you could develop um, pretty much anything you could think of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of the Apple II. It's just like the sky's the limit on hardware design. But I always thought that that was a really funny story about drilling holes in the side of the case,
Yeah.
and then Steve being like, "Oh, it didn't do enough. It's not enough," because stickler Steve Jobs was. And then the Macintosh Classic, which is kind of the end of the line for those all-in-one black and white Macs. In front of the speaker, there are holes drilled in the side of the case for better audio.
Yeah.
It's so your idea was sound, literally the Don Ching, but it just took a few years to get some acceptance.
I remember I had actually been lured away by the Lucasfilm Games group.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like a year after I went over there, Andy sought me out and said, he told me, you finally got your stereo audio.
Yeah, it took a little bit.
I just told these guys, the whole world has stereo sound.
Right.
You can't just do a single channel audio. I'm sorry. You got to have at least 2 channels, ideally more.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how much of that was just design and cost, and how much of that was Apple Corp, and the with the trademark issue where, hey, if you guys don't get into music, don't get into the music business. That's the Beatles. Yeah. You guys are the computer people.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's interesting that my ideas there, the things that I really kept pushing on, turned out to be one of the reasons why they eventually broke that. They eventually decided we're going to go ahead and enter the music business anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the part of the story I don't think you mentioned was that they Apple Corporation had grown so big and so powerful by then that they resolved the lawsuit by buying the Beatles. They simply acquired, what was the name of that? Their music company.
It was Apple Corp. Yeah. So Apple Computer, Apple Corp. Yeah.
Yeah, they just acquired them. That was so funny. I couldn't believe it. But it was like 2 of my favorite things in the world. Like the Beatles and Apple. Now all of a sudden they're one.
Yeah. Well, it's you get the big teams together and you can do amazing things, right? So, Charlie, you had mentioned that you kind of got whisked away or lured away by the people over there at Lucasfilm Games to work on a couple of projects. I know that you're friends with David Fox and with the early team over there. I know that there's a few people that kind of stand out as being the people that were on the ground floor of that, but you're right there after them. So do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about your kind of early time there at LucasArts? I know that you kind of met David and Annie Fox through their I forget what the name of their center was, but
homebrew computer.
Oh yeah, because they're all homebrew computer club people. But then they had the center where that way that people could get time with computers. And things. I know that they had the space experiments and things like that, and you maybe volunteered and worked with that as well. So I'm guessing that's where you got your in at LucasArts, right?
Well, I actually it was funny. I remember I was at a computer party. There weren't many of those back then, but we'd occasionally get a lot of people that were in the early home computer field.
Mm-hmm.
And well, many of them were also in the professional computer field. And they just spent some time with the homebrew group as well. I do remember I was at a computer party,
Mm-hmm.
and I met David Fox there. I mean, he was already a friend,
Mm-hmm.
but I ran into him at the party, and he showed me his new business card. And I looked at it, and I must have just stared at it because it was like, it said Lucasfilm Games. And I was dumbfounded. It was like, George Lucas is doing games. Tell me more about this. And so, yeah, I wound up going over there for an interview, and yeah, I joined their group. And it was in the early days, there was really only one thing to do. See, we had access to the absolutely remarkable film group.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people there in that group was very interested in our little neck of the woods, very interested in personal computers. And that was Loren Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Loren was one of those guys whose name I actually knew. And along with the other luminaries of the early computer graphic world, yeah, he was interested in our work. And so I remember spending many, many hours talking with him about it. And in fact, at one point, our cubicles were right next to each other. We had to work that closely together, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it seemed like there was only one obvious project to do. He was involved in creating the, well, do you remember the Genesis effect?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
that was
Star Trek 3.
right. That was Loren. I mean, he created that 3D fractal flying over mountains clip.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was working with him closely. What he wanted to do is he wanted to bring that to the Apple II. And the thing is, he programmed big computers.
Right.
But at that time, programming the little computers was vastly different. Something like that was going to have to be written in machine language.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it couldn't possibly be fast enough. So it was my job to try to take the algorithms that Loren created and move them to the Apple II.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where we get this great game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The idea was that the algorithms already existed, but we're talking about 1,000 to 1 speed ratio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the difference in speed between the computers Loren was working on and the Apple II, I was comparing it to like it's like a jet. It's like flying a jet aircraft versus a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
And And actually, Loren suggested that it was actually greater than that. So, but yeah, it was, our little machine was working at like 1,000th of the speed. And we had to try to make it look like it was actually computing fractal mountains. And what I eventually wound up ramming my nose against was the fact that you can't make something look like fractals unless they are fractals. So I had no choice but to try to implement Loren's fractals on the Apple II.
Mm-hmm.
And that was possibly the hardest single project that I ever did. I mean, it took, to get it up to the point where it looked cinematic, it took 2 years. 2 years of the hardest work that I've ever done on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, after all that time, finally it got to the point where it looked real. And I just, it was funny. I was working in secret the whole time. And, I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing. In fact, even a lot of the people inside Lucasfilm didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, this is where the idea came up of the man behind the curtain, It's sort of like everyone else sees the Wizard of Oz, and it's just this guy behind the curtain.
Yeah, but again, those contributions made for some amazing games back in the day, and derivative technology and all of that. I can't imagine without, like, because again, it's the math. If you understand the math, then it makes something like this eminently possible. So, but you have to create the math first.
Mm-hmm.
So this game is amazing. People will still talk about it. There's even a modern sort of fan community remake of, you can play this on modern machines. So I just remember, I remember seeing this, I think 1985 or something, when this first came out, and just being completely blown away that you could play something like that on a home, a kind of general purpose home computer,
Mm-hmm.
and that it wasn't on $5,000 dedicated arcade hardware.
Yeah. No, that was what was funny about that is it's hard to actually describe the levels, the breakthroughs that I went through on that project. It was like when it started out, I was I got the algorithms working, but it took 2 minutes to generate a frame. And that was after I'd already optimized it. And it was like, I don't know if this machine is ever going to be able to do this in real time to make a game out of it. And because the minimum speed that you need to support a game is about 12 frames per second. And that's actually a pretty hard line. And what that comes from is cartoons.
Yeah, animate on the twos. Yep.
Yeah, almost every cartoon out there was at 12 frames per second. And people didn't realize it consciously. At first, I didn't realize it consciously. Is that there is a part of your brain that is used to seeing things coming in at 12 frames per second. And it does the work of smoothing things out.
It just, your brain fills in the gaps for you.
And that only works at 12 frames per second. I experimented with it, and it's a very tight margin. So I had to actually make it work at 12 frames per second. So I don't really know how to describe the process. I mean, I remember one time when I was just so absolutely stumped. I was just locked in place, and I remember taking a long walk on the beach. It was about all I could do to break whatever lockup was happening in my brain.
Mhm.
I took this long walk on the beach, and I tried really hard not to think about work. Tried to just actually be there. And that actually broke it. All of a sudden, ideas started flooding in. And it's like, well, what if I did this, you know? And I went back and I tried that idea, and I no more than got finished with that one, and I got another idea. And it's like at one point, you know, the orders of magnitude here are difficult to describe.
Mhm.
At one point, it occurred to me that it was like I would climb a mountain. I did all this work. It was like climbing a mountain. And when I got to the top of the mountain, I found myself at the base of another mountain. And each one was, again, the same amount of work at a higher level.
Sure.
And then that led to another mountain. And this, I don't know how many times that process repeated itself. But it was like this little kernel that I was working on, the graphic kernel, kept getting smaller. And every time it gets smaller, it gets faster. See, the machine can only do so many instructions per second, but the fewer instructions it has to do, the faster it goes. So eventually, eventually I got the graphic kernel, the part of it that draws the fractal line.
Mm-hmm.
I got it down to 6 instructions. 6 machine instructions. And that was actually fast enough to build a game on top of. So yeah, it was, I don't know.
It was a good walk on the beach, that's for sure.
It was a long time working on the same piece of code.
Mm-hmm.
And I never could have imagined at the start, you know, how many breakthroughs it would lead to. At that time, I happened to be working with some remarkable people. I mean, I was, the things that I was working on would never have come to anything if it hadn't been for these other people. And one of them, looking at this background here, with the old dragon, one of them, yeah, was Gary Winnick. Yeah, Gary was the artistic backbone of the group for quite a while. Everything we were doing, he would give form to it. You know, he would give us something we could show on the screen, and it was great stuff. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, that game was something that I wanted to do because
Mhm.
um, after we finished doing Rescue and we were flying over Fractal Mountains,
Right.
I got the idea of turning the picture upside down. And so the mountains would become caves. And same code, really. And I just inverted part of it and it worked fine. But
I was gonna say it's a lot of fun, and that's everybody's dream is to like you get your game engine written, you put all that time and trouble into it, to
mhm.
be able to use it twice. You know, maximize the use on all of that. But this is a really great game, and it's kind of it again. You're right. It does very much borrow a lot from the gameplay of Rescue on Fractalus, but
Mhm.
this is its own fun, unique thing. I never, as a kid, was like, "Oh, this is just Fractalus upside down." No, this is like its own exciting new adventure for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was always fond of dragons, and it turned out that so was Gary. So yeah, we built the dragons into a game. It was the game started out to be something entirely different. Um, I had a pet name for it. I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, it was basically um, it was a series of overland adventures. Instead of being inside caves, we were outside. And although it was kind of what you call a rail shooter,
Hmm.
we had a kind of a narrow rail. It was like, I don't know, a certain width
Hmm.
that you're going down there and you're dealing with an enemy coming the other direction. And we literally, you were playing the part of the dragon. And and there was a knight on horseback that was riding the other way with a lance, and he's trying to hit you. He's trying to run you through.
Hmm.
So basically, you can not only dodge him, but you can breathe fire. And it was just it was a kind of a silly game, but it was also fun. And I I eventually, while I was working on it, a name occurred to me for it. It was instead of tournament, it was called Turnabout. Tourn.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, so you're playing the part of the dragon in this one.
Hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, but we preserved parts of that. It turned out the game it was too open. It was too uncontrollable. It would have been a nice game on a bigger machine, but just couldn't do it. So we built it into a series of dungeons. Yeah, the control panel on it was I borrowed some ideas there from like H.G. Wells. It was looked like really old time, you know, dials and controls and things.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was the game that probably more than any I designed myself. It was like I had a chance to do all of these things, and so it was fun. Um,
Well, it's a lot of well, as somebody on the other side of it, it's definitely a lot of fun to play. So it's good to hear that it was a lot of fun to create.
yeah, Gary did basically all of the graphics in that, and his style really comes through. you know, yeah, but um, anyway, yeah.
Well, I know you worked on quite a few other projects while you were there at Lucasfilm Games, later LucasArts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't want to. I don't. I mean, you know what you worked on, but I know for a fact that a lot of people absolutely love this one,
Oh yeah.
and all of the adventure titles and things like that. And uh, one thing that I absolutely asked if we could talk about that didn't get a box is Habitat.
Yes.
And how I don't think that it gets talked about enough as being kind of the first MMO, about being that first
Mhm.
sort of it bridges the gap between interactive experience and game and all of these things that are now just everywhere. Do you
Mhm.
maybe want to give us a few memories or about the development or kind of how that all came together?
Sure. Yeah. The idea of Habitat started out. Um, Chip Morningstar. Um, he had this idea that he wanted to do, and basically, I looked at it and said, "How can I help?" And it was really Chip's idea, so I don't want to take any credit away from him. But the it did require an awful lot of groundwork. And what I didn't realize I was building at that time was an engine. Now, the whole game is contained in that engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interactivity engine, and basically, it supports objects. So basically, you could create an object and just toss it into the engine, and the engine will make it real. It'll res it up on the screen, and whatever behaviors you have programmed into that object, it'll support those. So there was each object had a header on it, and then a whole bunch of graphics following. And the header had, among other things, the header had a list of pointers, and each pointer pointed to a graphic object. So just a list of those following it. And this whole package then was a thing you could load in from disk, and then just run. It would just appear and interact with other objects. So building that took quite a while, and a lot of people contributed ideas to that. It wasn't it wasn't mine as much as it was ours,
Mm-hmm.
the whole group.
Well, sure.
And but it was Chip's idea, and we tried to be true to that. So it wound up being more powerful and more engaging than I would have imagined. You know, the essentially it's hard to put into words.
Well, it definitely was it's a very unique experience. So for people that are not super familiar with Habitat, it was basically sort of a door or what you would call a door, kind of on a BBS, that was a section of Quantum Link, which later became AOL, where basically you could go on there, and it was its own little interactive village where you could play games against other players. You could chat. There was like a daily newspaper. So it was like this whole world inside of your Quantum Leak account where you could interact with other people. And there was a point where there was talk about that it was going to expand, that people could kind of build their own environments and things like that. And it unfortunately didn't kind of make it all the way to the promise of what it could have been. But I mean, it's to go online and look at kind of the scant amount of information that still exists out there, with screenshots and people's recollections and things. It seems like this really amazing thing to have been able to have been a part of at that time.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard to know what to say about it. It was a very powerful idea. And I helped bring that into a more focused reality. But unfortunately, I couldn't really do justice to all of it. What I managed to build was kind of a small presentation. It was more of showing the idea rather than being the product itself. And it led to some interesting but unfortunately very low speed interactions. So it became nothing more than text games.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was that those text games could be very powerful. They could span enormous story elements.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built my own game on top of it to try to test it. Mm-hmm. And see where the weaknesses were. And that was the Pagemaster. Yeah, there was a movie being produced at Lucasfilm at the time. That was.
Or is it Labyrinth?
No, it was actually the Pagemaster.
Oh, wow.
It was actually a game. It might not have been produced by Lucasfilm. I'm trying to remember who it was that did produce it. But I was working on it, and yeah, actually I helped create the world and help flesh it out. So I managed to sneak some of my own jokes in there. I just thought they got to have some Easter eggs in it somewhere.
Sure.
So one of my favorites was if you're exploring, there's all this various worlds for storytelling, and one of them is the boating world. I mean, the ships, sailing mm-hmm. ships,
right.
And they're in the dock at the time. We couldn't really support going out to sea, so we just had them in the dock, and you could actually walk onto the ships. But yeah, the please refresh my memory. What exactly were we talking about?
Oh, I originally we were talking about Habitat, but you were talking about the Pagemaster game for the Macaulay Culkin movie that you had worked on as well, and that you could go to the docks because it's all the different stories that are kind of in the book basically. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I snuck in there was if you're going out to the dock and you just sort of walk almost off the end of the dock, you'll find a couple of characters hiding there.
Oh yeah.
And you can talk to them, and they don't have much to say, but they do have one or two lines that also leads you to another discovery somewhere else. But the whole game was built on finding clues and then parlaying those into more clues. But one of the characters is a little fish, that that tells you, he tells you a little warning that it turns out the character that he mentions and the warning that he gives you has nothing to do with anything in the game. So, and then you realize that this fish was actually colored red.
It's the red herring, I guess.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So yeah, there were a couple of those hiding in there, and it was a fun game. It was very interesting.
Absolutely. I know over the years, you worked on, you worked for Epix, you worked for Wizards of the Coast, you worked for Nintendo, doing different projects and things like that. I think that maybe to kind of wrap this up, we should talk about the game that I promise everybody has played as part of the multimedia revolution, the Sega CD. It's going to change the world, Sewer Shark.
Okay.
I think it's just kind of one of those fun games that really let you, especially home people that didn't have a computer, didn't have a big fancy setup, with the Sega CD and Sewer Shark, you could kind of play around with like the full motion video, multimedia revolution. I mean, it was certainly very innovative at the time. And I know that Digital Pictures and other companies made a lot of those things. But how did you get to be involved with the Sewer Shark project?
How did that start?
Well, I know that you specifically worked on the, I guess maybe the 3DO version. It might have been more of like porting it than anything else. But
yeah, it was. They wanted to do a full motion video game, and it was trying to work on a machine that was much too small for it. And so the challenge was simply to take a game that had already been developed and just make it run in real time. And just
make it run.
Well, I mean, it should have been that easy. I mean, I wanted it to be that easy, but it, the thing is, well, I basically had to learn things that I never expected that I would be learning. And part of that project was actually learning about magic, sleight of hand, how to make something look like it's quite impossible, but to do it, with real stuff. I mean, how do you just do it with your hands, but it winds up looking like this huge presentation. Yes. It's just, I had to learn some very powerful techniques, which actually have nothing to do with computers. It's presentation, essentially. And that was a point where I was really happy that I was working with Lucasfilm and with people that know how to do this kind of illusion. A lot of the stuff they do, on the silver screen in the theaters, a lot of the stuff they do there, and this is all well known. I mean, it's like they do this magic, the cinematic magic, because you can't possibly do all these things for real. So how do they make it look like they're doing it? So I was able to actually work with these people who are doing these things and learn from them. And So my presentation was on the computer rather than being on the screen, but it's the same idea. Well, basically, when I was trying to do this, I was biting off a really big chunk here,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working on this thing piece by piece, layer by layer,
Mm-hmm.
and at first it seemed like it would be impossible. And the thing is that that is my rallying cry, really. I love things that people call impossible. And it's because it's a big challenge. Those are the kind of challenges that I live for. So I on this one, well, there is nothing that better embodies sleight of hand than a computer, because what we're dealing with here is something that is not very powerful, but it has tremendous resources in it. I mean, part of it is memory,
Mm-hmm.
but the idea is that if you try to have pictures, try to have a series of pictures, you quickly run out of memory. So you can't do that. So the idea is you have things that can generate pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and then you try to work with those. But even there, you run out of memory. So I had to create layer upon layer to try to make these things happen. And even then, at the start, they were very crude. I mean, I got them to look right,
Mm-hmm.
but it was seriously, we're talking minutes per frame. And at the start, I didn't know if it could be possible, but it's one of those things I had to try.
Absolutely. Well, as somebody on the other side of this, Chuck, I really, really appreciate it. I as someone who grew up loving these games, I appreciate all the effort that went into them, even ones that I found very, very frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie, thank you so much for taking time and meeting with us here today. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you. It was quite a privilege.
Thank you, sir.
Another crash and burn. First time, huh, rookie? Hey, listen, I hear they're putting you in with Ghost today. Now that's my main man. Greatest co-pilot to ever shoot the tube.
Okay, ignition on 3. Ready? 3! Hey, relax. Pretend it's a game. Maybe it'll even be fun. Shoot the tubes, dog meat!
If you think you're dead, encore, fucking good.